you want to document everything you're doing, write down in detail, and the way you look at it is problem solution. So obviously if you have an invention, it has to be novel, and it has to be useful, and that is one of the first hurdles you have to meet. And that's basically if you have a device or an idea or a process that addresses a problem, then you have to describe what other things are on the current horizon that don't solve the problem, and then why your particular idea has the ability to solve that problem.
It does take investigative work, and if you think that you're going to think of a product on a Friday afternoon and it goes to market on Monday, it's kind of like the pregnant elephant. I mean, it's a long gestation period, and you have a combination of being patient and persistent, all wrapped up into one.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 413. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for being with us today. Really excited about today's episode, everyone. It's on patents and inventions, and I'm excited for several reasons. I think one is that it is yet another opportunity for you all to see me fall flat on my face. I look really, really dumb on some of the questions I ask, and I'm really sorry about that, but there's just some things that, we all have these blind spots, but this is a topic that I really needed to know the answers because I just as a personal journey. And so very thankful for Noel and Rich for just being so patient with me as we got through all those questions. I would say that if you have ever thought about inventing something yourself, or you have an idea for maybe a new product, whether it's in dentistry or not, this episode really is for you. If this is something that you never really thought of before, it might be a little bit on the dry side, but I tell you what, I took copious notes. This was just such an amazing episode, I think. And it's one of those things like you're not going to find better experts out there than Rich and Noel. But I would say that there are probably going to be more questions than answers coming from this episode. If this is something that this is like, it's really speaking to you, it's probably going to leave you with a lot more questions. And so feel free. I'm going to put their email address into the show notes as well, but also be prepared because they say their email address at the end of the episode if you want to contact them. Next week, we're doing an episode about a product that several people have had questions about. I see it come up pretty regularly, maybe not every week, but I mean, probably at least once a month in some of the social media groups and forums. And it's PerioProtect. I've talked about PerioProtect a lot on the podcast, but I don't think that you guys want to listen to me keep talking about it. So what I did, and this is not a sponsored episode that's coming up, I went out and I found a couple of hygienists who were actually using it. And I asked them a whole bunch of questions, like what successes they've had, what were some of the pain points that they did, how much do they charge, all of that kind of stuff is on next week's episode. So it's a really, really good one. I'm really excited about it because I think it's also going to be a resource that we could probably use later on, like in those Facebook groups of like, hey, you want to know the answer? Here's an episode, go listen to that. So trying to be more like a resource. So it's not kind of our typical format, but I think you'll enjoy it. But if you will all do me a favor, be sure to hit that subscribe button, or on Apple Podcasts, it's actually a follow button. So if you'll make sure you hit those so you don't miss next week's episode, it'll auto download for you if you're a subscriber. And I appreciate that. Then the last thing before we get into the episode, I told you all last week, I think I said something like almost 600 people had signed up for RDH Under One Roof next year. It's in July in Denver, Colorado. Well, I think it was maybe the next day, or maybe it was the same day that it aired. I can't exactly remember when, but we were on a call and we learned that we just smashed right past that 600 mark. I think we actually had almost, or maybe around 100 more people sign up for that at the last update. And I'm telling you all right now, again, this is going to sell out really quick. It's faster. It's way faster pace than last year. And last year we sold out and it was at the fastest pace it had ever been since forever. So please, please, please don't be left out. RDHunderoneroof.com. We do have a discount code, podcast30 at checkout for $30 off of your full registration price. which I think is the biggest discount that I've seen lately. So feel free to use that one. Again, podcast 30. It's all smushed together into one word. Or if you have a different code that you want to use, or pay full price. I mean, it's all good. Just don't miss out on this. Oh, and I saw in our team's chat earlier, I'm not really actually, maybe I shouldn't be saying this. I don't think anyone listens to the podcast. It's probably going to be okay. But I think I read that there were the sponsors for the big party on Friday night that they just signed. So if you've been before, you know what a big deal that is. And so really excited about that. Of course, be sure to check your event guides to make sure you're staying on top of all the updates. But as of right this minute, that's happening. So that's always a fun one. Okay, that's it for me for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy this episode with Rich and Noel.
A tale of two hygienists.
We recording now?
Oh, we are now.
Okay.
I was just going to, but I'm just doing it just like because we were
Sure.
talking about some good stuff.
Yeah, we had a recommendation for a particular attorney in New York that I called, and I got one of the partners, and I explained to him what we're doing, and he said, okay, this is one of our associates, and this is one of our partners that you can probably work best with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's a key. That's downstream, though.
Yeah.
If I start out or someone starts out with an idea, the first thing to know is the patent laws have changed. I'm not a patent attorney, so I can't give you any advice on that. And I can just tell you my experiences. And they are that you want to document everything you're doing, write down in detail. And the way you look at it is problem solution.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, if you have an invention, it has to be novel. And it has to be useful. And that is one of the first hurdles you have to meet. And that's basically if you have a device or an idea or a process that addresses a problem, then you have to describe what other things are on the current horizon that don't solve the problem, and then why your particular idea has the ability to solve that problem.
How novel does this idea have to be? Because I feel like when I go back in my head of what I had in what I wanted to do, it is there's still a problem. It's a new problem that was created based on how dentistry has changed recently. The solution that we had wasn't meeting quite the expectations of the new way dentistry was being done. But it's not really completely brand new, unique idea.
Okay, there are two other hurdles you have to meet. One will be novelty, the other is inventiveness. The novelty requires that your way of doing it is not something that someone just might normally think of offhand.
Right.
It would take some digging or take some innovation to say, oh, I never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to pass the novelty test. If it doesn't pass the novelty test, you won't go anywhere.
Okay.
Then after that, it has to also pass the inventive test, and that is how different is this in approaching the problem and solving the problem than anyone else has tried. So if you have just a standard routine way of doing it, that's not inventive.
Okay.
So novel has to be, hey, I didn't think of that before. Inventive means that you, from my perspective, that you have to be able to do it in a way that may not be a normal, straightforward way of thinking. Out of the box thinking, probably the best way to do that. And all along this process, you want to describe in writing to yourself on paper what this is, so that when you go back, that you can go back to your notes and say, okay, here's how I address that, because that's going to be invaluable when you start talking to the attorneys. So from my perspective, the most cost-effective way to approach a patentable idea is to apply for what's called a provisional patent. Now, provisional patents aren't tested. There's no hurdles you have to pass. But you still want it to be novel and inventive, so that at the next level. Now, the great thing about provisional patents is the cost. So, for example, if I were to take an idea and go and apply for a utility patent, which is probably much more powerful than a methods patent or a process patent.
So many patent types. Oh my gosh.
But the utility patent then could end up costing you $5,000 to $10,000. It's going to be prosecuted, which means that the attorneys then will compare it to prior art. And so let's say you make it to the $3,000 or $5,000 level, and then the prosecution comes in and says, we reject all your claims. Now, then you go back to your ideas and say, all right, how can I reframe these? How can I rephrase these? Because wording is the powerful way.
Yeah.
The patent. If your words aren't consistent and powerful, you have less of a chance of attaining the utility patent.
Sure.
So, going back to the provisional, I always go to attorneys, even though you can do provisionals on your own. I like to use the same attorney's office that's going to file the utility. That's just continuity. So I don't have to then deal with different mindsets.
And reiterate your stuff that you've already
exactly.
said. Yeah.
And now you don't have to do the same detail, but I still like to put as much detail in my provisional as possible, even though it's not required.
Sure.
So provisional patent with an attorney help will probably cost you under $500.
Okay.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
Now, here's the catch to that, the caveat. When you have a provisional patent, you have 1 year from the date that patent is issued to apply for utility patent.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't apply for it within that 1 year, then those ideas become public, and then anyone could apply for it.
And I would imagine that just like with the domain space, there's people just waiting that have scouted out, good ideas that are going to jump if you don't apply for it.
Right. Now, there are ways in dealing, again, with the attorney's office and with the patent office to say, I don't want this published until this date.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you don't publish until the 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So that means nobody's going to see anything you've done on this until that 12 months has passed.
Mm-hmm.
And then anytime during that time, you can apply for an extension or a new provisional. Your date changes. The idea of provisional is if I applied for it today and then did my utility 11 months from today,
Mm-hmm.
my stake in the ground is for today. So that anybody who might have filed, because it's first to file now, it's not first to invent, which is huge.
Which let's circle back to that in a minute, but yeah.
Yeah. So if now I'm the first to file, but somebody came up and filed 6 months after I filed my provisional, but before I filed my utility, I have prior art. So I still have it. So that's why that provisional gives you 1 year to sort of, okay, is this going to work financially for me? Do I really have an idea that's going to be powerful enough? Let's say you got a patent, but the market size was so small. Well, gosh, I just spent a lot of money for a patent. Let's say I spent the $10,000, and my market life is going to maybe make me $3,000.
Yeah.
Well, that was been a waste of time.
Right. Right. Now, is it you have the 1 year to file or until it's granted?
Just to file.
Just to file. Okay.
So then once you file, then the clock starts, and when they start to prosecute, I think that's the date when they start. If you get it issued, that would be the date then that the patent would start as 20 years from.
Okay.
But that I'm not sure of that. The attorney can straighten all that out when that starts. But I know you get 20 years now, and sometimes they extend that if there's extenuating circumstances. For example, they did some prosecution that got lagged behind for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't have a big enough field to search for. They wanted to go back and do another search. So then what they do is they add that time onto your 20 years.
Okay.
So, but the bottom line is you're probably going to get 20 years from the date of your filing.
Let's go back to the first to file, first to invent. And so historically, what was the rule for being granted the rights to it?
Gosh, I don't remember how long ago it was, but it's at least 10, 15 years ago they went to first to file. First to invent created a lot of challenges because people would take and falsify documents.
Yeah.
Because what you'd do is you'd have a notebook, you'd sign it, get someone to countersign it, and put a date on it that predated whomever you thought was going to have a prior art on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a lot of gray area there. And even if it weren't falsified, there's still then arguments, that one day, well, maybe I got a document, a memo that predates this.
Yeah.
And so you wasted a lot of time and a lot of attorney's fees to try to prove what that was. And they said, you know what? First to file matters now, so whatever it is, it's really simple. Stake in the ground. I don't care if you got a notebook that goes back 5 years earlier. You didn't file it, so you didn't think it was worthy.
Interesting.
Now, there's another thing in patents, too, that's part of the usefulness of a patent. If the patent is not, if you can show there is an economic advantage or an ecological advantage or some, that's not just, don't limit yourself to think of what advantage is this. Maybe you just think it's a process advantage. But let's say that it made a zero footprint in the ecology. That would be huge too.
Yeah.
Let's say that there was another idea that was similar out there, but this one was more economical. It was more cost effective in terms of time to produce, and it had more longevity in terms of the product you made lasted longer.
Yeah.
That all those little nuances can add then to the strength of your patent. That's why it's so important that you write all these details down. Even thoughts, and here's one thing you never, ever do. Never write, I didn't think this would work. Sounds really simple.
That sounds ridiculous that you should.
But if you
think
put
about,
that down, and that then became part of the document,
That's
that used against you, and they
legally
said, well,
binding,
but you didn't realize that, so therefore, this person has an advantage.
There's got to be like precedent that has happened multiple times for that to be
I'm
a
sure.
warning coming from you.
Yeah.
So what about like telling other people, because you get so excited about
gonna
your
ask,
baby that you think is going to solve, the world's problems, well, at least in dentistry and dental hygiene. So what's the rule of thumb about telling people about it?
Rule of thumb is you need a confidentiality agreement with somebody. Either as an individual, if you're a company, use your company to do that. It's a little stronger, I think, for a company.
Yeah.
But even as an individual, just make your own form. They probably have Bloomberg forms online for non-disclosure or confidentiality agreements. And keep it simple and be specific.
Yeah.
Confidentiality agreements can get bogged down when you try to cover too much. And they work against you because they say, well, but this is such a broad field. And then the attorneys would argue, well, it's so broad that it's meaningless.
Right.
So when I do confidentiality agreements, I will say, let's say I've got bicycle handlebars that are ergonomically advantaged. It reduces muscle strain when you're riding long distances, whatever. And then I would do my confidentiality agreement that I have ideas that pertain to the design, manufacture, and development of ergonomic bicycle handlebars.
But wouldn't they see that and then not sign it since they already know the field that you're looking in?
No,
Like in dentistry, if we took that same thing, it's like this is about.
I've never had anybody not sign something like that.
Interesting.
It, to their advantage, too, it's more specific.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, there are one-way confidentiality agreements and two-way confidentiality agreements. I always prefer the one-way. Corporations love two ways.
Of course.
But here's the challenge. If you're divulging information to somebody, you're sharing information like you suggested, you want a one-way. I'm going to tell you something that you have to remain confidential. I don't want to know anything from you.
Yeah.
Because if it's a two-way, then you got the gray area. Well, who told whom what?
I was going to ask, so if they had an improvement upon your idea or upon your design or whatever.
Do they own part of it?
Do they?
Well, that's the thing. So what you have to do in your confidentiality agreement is say, everything I say to you verbally or visually is covered by my confidentiality agreement, and it has to be followed up in a document in writing within 15 days or 30 days. And so that if I drew a sketch for you, for example, and I would make sure that then I would send you a copy of that sketch dated and mark it confidential.
Right.
So now that's part of the document. But again, it's dotting your I's, crossing your T's. It's simple things.
Sure.
But yeah,
It's not that much different than what we do in clinical practice with our documentation. I mean, we need to document what we're actually doing, providing services we're providing. So I think as hygienists, we're already primed for this process because we are methodical, and that documentation process is part of this whole thing of bringing an idea to market.
I think the counterpoint to that is we are taught in school all the documentation to document. We have a template note. We have a this where that's where it's like some of this is so foreign language to dental professionals, hygienists specifically, of what needs to be in that document. Is it a two-way street? Is it a one-way street? Like all of that stuff is brand new information for a lot of us. So I guess it goes kind of back to your original point about we need legal help. We need someone in an advisory capacity probably to help us that can help us navigate those waters. We can't do that by ourselves.
I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, I think that because we don't know what ocean we're swimming in. We know we want to swim. We know it's going to be an ocean. We just don't know which ocean we're swimming in. And so I think, part of it is just like when you're going for a position interview, and you're scoping out the practice. Is it a fit for you and your clinical skills and your philosophy? The same thing with looking for a patent attorney.
Yeah.
Is use those same discernment skills. As is the culture within the firm, within your way of working and your way of thinking, and it's okay to say, you know what, thanks but no thanks. It's not a match.
Yeah.
And then to move on. And in selecting, I think it's important, really right out of the gate, when you are looking for legal advice, to find a firm that has attorneys that are aware of the dental field, and also, of course, patent process, all that sort of stuff.
Can we talk about a little bit the patent search that they will do? What kind of supporting, you mentioned about sketches, but what others like supporting evidence do we have to give to those people that might not understand a novel idea in the way that we're trying to do it? Yeah, let me go back. The reason why I say this is because we have people like yourselves, we have our Emily Bogies, we have people who have implemented changes, perfections, whatever you want to call it, to instrument design and things like that are so slight, so minute in the way that this is curved or whatever. Like, how do you adequately describe that? It just seems like you'd have to have it like on an engineer level.
Again, it goes back to, is it novel, is it inventive? But it's interesting when you talk about do searches. If you try to do searches yourself, pay an attorney to do searches before you apply for utility, very, very expensive.
Yeah.
If you apply for the utility patent, they will do the searches. And it's your obligation, however, if you're familiar or understand or know any other similar products, that you have to divulge that in your document. So in the prior art, what I will do, and right now, one of the most powerful search engines is Google Patents.
Nice.
You can try the USPTO, and they've made it so much more complicated to try to find out things with keyword searches.
Yeah.
In Google, you can look up applications, you can look up patents, you can look up certain areas of patents that you're looking for. So if you're specific to dental implants, you could look up patents for dental implants, and of course you might get, 50,000.
Of course, yeah.
And then you narrow it down. It's important that you, and I always try to include, again, from my experience in a patent, something that includes prior art that I'm making an improvement on. So in other words, this is the problem and this is my solution to it. So you
and that won't hurt your chances because you're
makes your chances better, because what you've done is you've divulged something that's close.
Okay.
So, but you've also pointed out to them that this is why, or this is the novelty of my approach over that, and how, and they'll come back and they might say, yeah, your novelty is there, but it's not inventive.
Yeah.
And then, but you're not lost. What you do, you go back, and the key again is you have independent claims and dependent claims. So you want from my experience, again, you want your independent claims as broad as possible, but to be specific enough to cover the product that you want to patent or the process you want to patent. Then what you do is you refine that or narrow it in your dependent claims. So let's say, for example, that the patent attorneys come up and say, well, we prosecuted and find that your independent claim, number one, is invalid. Well, what you can do, and sometimes they'll help you because they're supposed to help you. So if you call up the examiner, you can do a one-on-one with them. Sometimes when you have a patent attorney, they don't want to talk to you. They want to talk to the attorney. But it's still your right to speak to them. Because why should I have to pay my attorney $350 an hour to listen what my argument's going to be?
Right.
So you then go back to your dependent claims, which narrowed it, and say, well, if I made it more narrow by putting this claim in, would it be allowed? And then sometimes that works. That's, okay, now it becomes inventive.
Okay.
So that's why, and of course you get charged. I think you're allowed to have 3 independent claims, and I'm going to pick a number out of a hat. I think it's 21 dependent claims.
Okay.
If it's over that, then you pay extra money.
Okay.
But it's worth it for the extra money you paid to have those extra claims, and they all have to be different enough that if one part fails, the other part prevails.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is nice that there's a back and forth. Like there's the opportunity at least to, have someone not necessarily guide you through it, but tell you where your deficiencies are. They're probably not going to say this is how you would
Internationally, they
right?
do that.
Oh, they do?
actually.
Okay.
They did that for me.
Interesting.
In the U.S. patent, they won't.
Okay.
In fact, I had one that just totally disallowed my claims. I called the examiner up. In advance to that, I made an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
I said, here are some documents to show you what I'm talking about. And he looked at me and says, well, I really don't understand this. And so I went over and said, okay, mathematically, here's what's happening. Physically, here's what's happening. And this is the inventiveness and why it's novel. And he looked it over and he says, okay, I agree. And I said, does that mean I get my patent? He says, no, because they can't give it to you on the spot. He says, that means I will go back. Pretty much you're going to get it.
Right.
So they went back and he says, I'll have to see if there's any other prior art based on what our conversation is. That's to cover themselves.
Sure.
And then within 3 months, they issued my patent, totally as claimed.
That's, I mean, which is great, but it does kind of lend to the fact that there are people approving or disapproving these claims and these patents that are not subject matter experts in that field at all.
Yeah.
And that's interesting.
And you don't get to select those, but they do have a supervisor. So if you don't like something that the person, your examiner, said, you have the right to go to the supervisor. But it's like, let's say that you have an argument with your boss. You always complain up. You never complain down. So you don't want to go around, for example, to try to get someone who's maybe at the same level or a higher level to come and argue your case for you. So you never embarrass your examiner by threatening to go to the supervisor. You say, I think maybe the supervisor can help me understand what this difference is, because I think my argument line may have some merit.
Yeah.
So it's always the language, politeness. It's like, again, I use the airline as an example. If I always love to go up to the counter after an irate passenger had just talked to one of the attendants. Because you go up and just say, man, you must be having a really rough day, and you'll get upgraded to first class, whatever they can do for you. It's just human nature. Why? They got a tough enough job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the key is always maintain calmness, but authority. I understand this patent, and this is maybe a nuance that may not be obvious, and that's why it's a patent.
Yeah. I have, before we move into a different thing, because we have, how many things do you have, Noel, on your list? About 20 things to talk about still. So, and so my question, though, is just about bringing in not your attorney, not just, okay, just candidly, I'll just say it. I approached some people who had gone through this process before and said, look, I want to entertain the idea of where we could partner on something like this. You have this expertise, I have this and this expertise. The reason by the way, the reason why we didn't go for it is they wouldn't sign a confidentiality agreement. But is that a pathway that people choose, and is that a pathway that works sometimes, or is it just a terrible idea?
What, not having a confidentiality agreement?
Partnering with people.
Partnering with people.
Yeah, who have the expertise in this area. Because this is, I'm thinking about, again, the dental hygienist in whatever town, Iowa, that isn't trying to patent something but has this brilliant idea, but maybe can't do the follow-through.
Yeah, it does make sense. If you do that, you dilute your shares.
Sure.
Of course, but it increases your chances of success.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you have to pick your partners wisely.
How would we evaluate a partner? Because if you don't know the space, right, like, I mean, you can interview them, I guess. Like you interview doctors, right?
So absolutely. It isn't.
Well,
I mean, we do an interview every day that we wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one interview after another, whether we label it as an interview or not. We're providing information to people for them to make a decision.
Right.
And I think in our industry, we know a lot of people, a lot of really great people, and we know their character, and we know who can be trusted. And so, in that situation, it's like over years we build networks of our contacts, and I always say it's not who I know, but who knows me. It's a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street. So I think picking your partner is very much, it's almost like in some ways speed dating.
Sure, yeah.
Getting to know that person over time, and I think it's getting to know that person over time. And do they have the expertise that you need?
Yeah, yeah.
But the key, you said, even more important than expertise is the trustworthiness and the honesty of the person.
Yeah.
So once you have that, and then your culture, basically with that person, is some that you can communicate well with.
Yeah.
Because if you have some engineer who's brilliant, but a big egoist, it's going to be difficult for them to get off that and really share what you need to know from them.
Yeah.
So if you have someone who's so confident in their own skin that they can say, yeah, okay, you know what? I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
And then you can do the same thing. Said, you know what? I see this approach you're doing, and that never occurred to me. How do you think that fits in? So if you do something like that as a partnership, yeah, very powerful.
I
Nice.
think watching the TV show Shark Tank is great preparation because you can see how they negotiate, what information they want. And, there are some times that some of the sharks want a solo deal. Others want to go in with another shark on a deal and what that percentage is, and lots of good lessons learned. But I think also in this space, when we think about inventions, top of line to say, okay, is this an invention that is for consumers, a dental invention for consumers,
Yeah.
or is this a dental invention that would be used by professionals?
Yeah.
Because that will separate out, one
Different market.
different,
Completely.
totally different market, and then that leads you to where there is a match for manufacturers, for the companies that are going to manufacture your product, and it may be a dental company, it may not be a dental company.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I was listening. There's a podcast that's very popular that's called "How Did This Get Built" or something like that. I just got turned on to it with Guy Raz, and they were interviewing the people from blah blah blah, and then they actually found a manufacturer all the way across the world, not in like somewhere, no big town Germany somewhere, to manufacture their product that, if I remember right, it wasn't intentionally meant for that industry. How would they even come across that? Like, how do you find a manufacturer to partner with in that manner?
Well, I think first, top of mind for me is who do you know, like, and trust? And, when we're in the dental industry, I just think about, like, what products do you admire? And who is making those products? That would be, like, my first threshold. And then after that, there is a bit of investigation that needs to be done. I mean, speaking with perhaps the marketing department or the sales department, again, with confidentiality agreements, because, there can be issues at times. I mean, you don't want to blab your idea to people and then have someone say, oh, that's a good idea. I think I'll file that. So it does take investigative work. And, if you think that you're going to think of a product on a Friday afternoon and it goes to market on Monday, it's kind of like the pregnant elephant. I mean, it's a long gestation period.
Yeah.
And you have a combination of being patient and persistent, all wrapped up into one.
Let me build on your Shark Tank talk. The thing that I look for in Shark Tank is not the evaluation. The Shark Tank, the entrepreneurs there evaluate the person on, do they understand their product? Where is the product in its development stage? Is it ready for marketing? Does it fit the market? And then does it fit their idea of what they want to invest in? The investment part is totally separate from the evaluation that, you know what, you got a great idea, but you haven't really scaled it up yet.
Sure.
And so if you're not ready for that, and that's all part of the patent too, understanding that you may have a great idea, can it be scaled up for manufacturing?
So if you are at this stage, okay, so you have this idea, you have your lawyer, you've done all these, you're filing for your patents, you've looked for maybe partners or not looked for partners, we're approaching manufacturers, not approaching manufacturers. Like where does the approaching manufacturers part come in all of that lead up? Like, do you have to have a done deal patent to do all that?
No, you want to do a sort of, I think the term is concurrent design or concurrent manufacturing. You want to have everybody involved day one.
Okay.
Now, you're not going to have an agreement with the manufacturer, but you have to understand whom you're going to approach.
Okay.
So a broad map of who you think could make this product. And you talk to them. I'll give you an example that a lot of people will go to a molder. And they want to mold something because it's going to be cheaper than machining.
Like an injection molding.
Injection molding.
Okay.
It would be a good example. And what they'll do is they'll make this drawing, this detailed drawing, give it to the molder, and say, how much is it going to cost and to mold this part, and so on and so on. Well, that's the first mistake. What you want to do is get your molder involved in your drawings. You don't want to give them something that, yeah, I can mold this, but if you change your radii down to this, then the mold will be 10% cheaper. If you could get rid of the draft on this, and it doesn't really affect your product, now it goes down another 10%. And so the same thing with a manufacturer. If you understand different manufacturers and what their core product is, and if the product you're patenting fits their family of products, then first of all, they're going to be more acceptable.
Sure.
Secondly, they're going to have the expertise in knowing how to make your product.
Apologize to the audience. There's a screaming child here on the exhibit hall floor. Okay, let me ask that. So manufacturer, the way I understand manufacturer might be different than the way that both of you do. The way I understand it is essentially it's a company that builds, creates, manufactures things. If the manufacturer is doing, we'll say toothbrushes, right? They might make all of the name brands that we see here on the exhibit hall floor, all within that one building. Is that what you're talking about? Is there the manufacturer, or is there a different definition that I'm not thinking of?
Well, you can get manufactured like that or assemblers.
Okay.
Sometimes there are assembly houses where they'll bring all the parts and they'll just assemble and test and ship.
Okay.
Manufacturers sometimes make some of the parts themselves, but that's not a requirement. So a manufacturer, for example, is the company that's going to end up putting your product in a box and selling it.
Okay.
So if they go outside to have a part machine because they're not a machine shop, that's smart, because if they did it themselves, it would be time-consuming and more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do, and then you have to coordinate, and that's where you look at a manufacturer's experience. They say, okay, they know how to deal with outside vendors. They have a list of reliable trusted outside vendors again. And so the manufacturers that I have always used had the capability, but also had the aptitude that they really wanted to build this product.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that, oh, this makes money for us. And then the other thing you look for is what is the level of their technology. So, for example, you might find a product or a company that uses old manufacturing techniques. You're going to be limited then in volume. If your item it has to grow, and it's going to grow because of the technology as it changes, then you got to make sure your manufacturing company has ability or the incentive to grow in those areas too. So it's all part of the selection. And if you wait till your patent is there, you're going to waste a lot of time. And you'll start with a manufacturer, they'll end up giving it back to you, say, you know what, we can't do this. Day one, you got to do it day one.
You're making a case more and more as we keep talking about having a partner who's already gone through this before, because that sounds daunting to me. To know what the manufacturer is capable of, I wouldn't even be able to evaluate their equipment, their technology levels. I wouldn't be able to understand to what capacity could they grow or create or innovate. I wouldn't know any of those things.
Okay, here's one way you can do it without having a partner. Let's say I've used this as an example. I wanted to find a company that was going to do some Swiss machining for me. So first of all, they have to have Swiss machines, which is a special machine for doing small parts for the product that I was inventing. I would take a machinist who understood these things with me and say, can we do a company tour? And so the companies that you want to do business with, very happy to show you their products. And I look at their quality system. Okay, after you make the product, how do you inspect it?
Yeah.
And what is the level of your inspection in terms of gauging your quality control system? But the machinist tells me, these are top-level machines. I mean, they may be 10 years or 20 years old, but these are workhorses. They've been around for years, and I see that they've upgraded them to do numerical control.
Yeah.
So then I know. So my friend has just told me this company has the expertise. I've just seen that their quality control shows me that they really care about their product going out the door because their name is on it.
Right.
Even if it's your product.
Sure.
And so you can do that free.
Okay.
It doesn't cost you anything. But again, you do that search up front.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And timing really is everything, because you can have, let's say you've got a brilliant idea, you've gone through the process of a provisional patent, you've got a trusted partner, you've got other people that are supporting you, and like Rich mentioned. But and then you go do have your Shark Tank date with a dental company to start to pitch what your product is, and keeping in mind that it may or may not fit their strategic initiative for that point in time.
Right.
And I think that was a little bit of a tough lesson for me to learn, because the timing was just off. Maybe so you have to there's some head talk there of is this product really worthy of continuing to hang in there and pursue it? when you need to get used to hearing no, no, no. And no doesn't mean no forever. It just might mean no for now. And that particular company may be on a different strategic path. They thought they wanted to go down this, do this dance with you. And then they come back and they say, well, you know what, actually, we don't want to do this dance with you. So there's built into like the psychology of this whole thing of realizing you start to build up, and it's like, okay, is this a done deal or not a done deal? Like, where are we in this whole process? So it's an ocean. It's an ocean to swim
Which is
in.
good to know. I guess my question about that would be, okay, this is assuming that you have the patent and that like no one else, you can't be on the time frame of if they say yes or no, or we're going to kick it down for the next year, the next year, the next year. As long as you own whatever this is, then you'll be okay. But if you don't own that, if you don't have, I guess complete ownership of it, then that's not going to work for you. The other thing I would kind of question about that would be, are you locked in at that point? Have you made arrangements with company A that you can't go talk to a competitor during that time just because it doesn't meet their strategic initiatives?
So there are a couple different models, and maybe I think you should speak to that, Rich.
Yeah, you don't make the commitment. So you want to evaluate, and you're upfront with all the companies. Say, listen, right now I'm evaluating companies who can build this product. And if they're trusted and they sign confidentiality, then you can share more technical detail with them. But at that point, you look at, again, what is the company culture? How big are they? Do they have different divisions? And that's another thing you have to worry about. A lot of times you'll go to one division and they'll end up shopping it off someplace else.
Yeah.
And you have not seen that company. And there's a little thing I avoid. Cleanliness is next to godliness. You go to a manufacturing facility, and if they don't clean up their lathes or their machinery and their floors aren't spotless like a restaurant, then they're slipping somewhere else too.
Interesting.
Because good companies, good manufacturing companies always keep a clean environment because they know anything can contaminate the product.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, so if they don't take really good care of that, then you know that the quality somewhere downstream is going to be a problem, or they're going to fall into back order and it all works against you. So, and those are just observations.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, no, you don't commit to a company until you're ready to say, okay, move. And a lot of the companies that I do business with, I've known for several years. So that our latest product, I've known the company for over 40 years.
Yeah.
And I saw the company grow. I saw them. I saw the new management change the perspective, and it just said, you know what? This is a company that I can work with, because I know that they have a future. They're not thinking just, okay, this is my product today. So what am I going to do tomorrow?
Yeah.
So they're growing with your ideas.
I love that. I love that.
But when it comes time to then look at the numbers, at some point you've got this brilliant idea and you can pat yourself on the back, but most people want a little bit more than that. They want to see their bank account grow.
Of course.
And that's a good thing. You want that. So there are different models of working with companies. One is sell it outright. Write me a check, bye-bye. There are other ways to do it related to royalties. And then there are combinations of cash plus royalties for a specific period of time. So there are different business models when it comes time for the inflow to actually coming back into your pocket.
Sure. Now, is there a model that incentivizes them more to try and move the product? So, for example, it would be great if I could just sell my thing to them outright, because bing, bang, done, it's now theirs. They should be incentivized, since they bought it, to go market it. But if they know that they're giving a cut to me for every unit that is sold, are they de-incentivized then to try and push it out? Or are they still incentivized at the same level? Do we have to consider that at all?
I think they want to make money too. They're not going to dance with you unless they're going to make money from it. So keep in mind too that if you do the royalties or something where you're tracking, you've got to track the numbers of how many widgets were sold. That takes time and energy on their part and yours as well.
Sure.
Could it be lucrative if they're selling a large number of them? Sure, it could. But considering that, what really at your core, what is best for you and your personality, your disposition, and of course, people have sold products for a set dollar amount, and then they see the company take the product and really it explodes and it's a wonderful product, and then you really can't have any regret or remorse to say, oh, darn, I should have done
Yeah.
a royalty on that top of that too. It's like, once the deal's done, the deal's done.
Right.
Yeah, or
And
you can
move
do
on.
you can do a royalty with $1 or a percentage.
Okay.
When you do percentages, then you have to worry about product returns, marketing costs, and it all gets in your way. Or you can do a straight dollar amount, like you suggested, and then you realize you can either say this dollar amount increases, 0.5% per year, or just keep it flat per year.
Yeah.
And but the whole idea is you make a pro forma. So you need a financial spreadsheet to go out a minimum of 5 years, best to have 10 years. So how well do you know the market? So if it's a new product that has no market developed, that's the biggest challenge. So now you have to find somebody, and you're going to have to pay somebody to do market research.
Yeah. And
sometimes there are companies out there that do market research that you can tap into by just saying, okay, I want to buy 2023's your market surveys for this,
Sure.
whatever. And then the trust again goes with the manufacturer. So because they'll have to share with you what some of their costs are. So in your pro forma, you'll have the cost to manufacture, cost of goods. You have to sort of estimate what the legal fees are going to be. Well, you pretty much know that because you're talking to your attorneys.
Right.
You want to talk about how much marketing fees are going to be. Well, you can look up in general and find out what a marketing fee is for some product similar to that. And you put all those things down, and then you can say, okay, your break-even point. Most companies look at break-even. So if your product won't break even until after 24 months, you may not meet their hurdle, because every company, especially larger ones, have hurdle rates. And let's say they get 20 product ideas a year, but they can only make 5. So they're going to go through a selection process that's going to say, first of all, what's my return on investment for this product? What's my margin on this product?
Sure.
And then you could be selected or not selected. And that a lot of that is based on your pro forma to say, you know what, we can show you that you're going to break even at 18 months. And at the 2-year mark, you're going to show a return on investment of 15%, whatever their ROI hurdle is. And after 5 years, you could show them that you're going to be making so many millions of dollars on this. That sort of then makes your royalty look like peanuts.
Yeah.
But so it's a win-win situation. You say, okay, here's what I'm going to make. Yeah, I'm going to make $2.5 million a year on this, but you're going to make $25 million.
Yeah. Man. We're 42 minutes into this, and we have, 15 more things to get to. So I'll just ask one final question about, Noel, you and I were talking about this before. In this dental space, we have seen some products launch, skyrocket, right away, instant success. We have seen others that are more of a slow burn reach that success point. We've seen other ones start, stop, fizzle. Is there obviously you have to know your market, but is there a couple of things that a creator, inventor person needs to find success in the market?
There is. The top ingredient really comes down to persistence. You've got to, number one, believe in your own product, and then being very persistent, choosing your partners wisely, whether it's your legal team or someone who's advising you financially, or even a trusted partner that is advising you on the product itself. But I think persistence, and then part of that persistence is also getting a constant read on the market. Really understanding what's going on in the background. When COVID hit and aerosols, it's and then you saw all these aerosol inventions or capturing devices and things like that. Understanding what are the drivers to the business of what's going on. So it's not just a matter of waking up one morning and saying, I've got a great idea, boom, let's go. Really deeply understanding what the market is. And what the competition is.
Yeah.
What other people are doing. So it sounds daunting in many ways.
It kind of does.
But it's really fun, especially when it's successful.
Especially if you love the product, right? If you really believe in the thing that you're doing, then it's going to be fun.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to break up with yourself. There are times where you have a product and you think it is just amazing, and it probably is amazing.
Yeah.
But if it's not the right time and all the puzzle pieces aren't fitting together, sometimes you look and you say, you know what? Got to pull the plug. Did I over the life of my working list, did I invest $20,000 in it? Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah.
But that's part of the gig.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to have a really strong stomach on this stuff. And there are times you do need to break up with yourself.
Yeah.
Let me say one thing, too. If you have a product that the performance eclipses anything that's out there right now, you think, wow, this is instant success. But it may not be, because then there are going to be the people say, wait a minute, how can it be so good? So they have to, try it, taste it, and feel it and say, oh, wow, you're right. This does meet everything you said it does.
Yeah.
And then, so it may be a little slow at first, and then it'll be exponential. But, yeah, even products that eclipse performance can have their doubting Thomases out there to say, yeah, come on.
Well, that's exactly what we were talking about yesterday on the podcast is, these great new products that come to market. I look at the research. I look at the, when I say research, I actually mean the materials that are published by the people that are trying to sell it to me. I look at it and I say, oh, that is supposed to be better. I like what I see. But you're right, though. In my back of my head, I'm always like, okay, it's going to be a little bit slower for me on the uptake, too, because I've been, sold this bill of goods before, and I want to know, I want to try it out.
So you go to end users, and you put it in their hands, and they come back, and then you look at their testimonies, and say, wow, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
You give it to the hands of evaluators who have reputations in the market to say, if they evaluate something and say, this is really what you say it is, it's like gold.
Yeah.
And so you find out who those people are, and you give it to them. You find magazines and companies like your own that would evaluate things and give it a seal of approval to say best product of the year or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And all those things together then reinforce that, wow, what took them so long? But it's one of those things, a lot of times people don't think about it. They say, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
And now that we see it, it makes the end user feel better about it, makes the patient better because it treats them clinically better. So it's a win-win across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those are rare products, and but they're really they give you that warm feeling because it's not just okay, we did well, we actually made it the industry better.
Yeah. Did the right thing for humanity at that point.
Right. I can't
honestly.
wait to see your product come to market.
Look, that's a whole different
In your spare
conversation.
time.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm sure everyone's going to have a lot of questions about this. If they wanted to reach out to you, if there's, you guys do a lot, and so if there's somewhere they can go and research you a little bit more, where could they go?
Sure. So for me, my email address is noel, Noel, .ultrasonicsplus @gmail.com.
And mine is Paschke, Paschke .ultrasonics, spelled ULTRASONIX @gmail.com.
I like it.
You can always check out my LinkedIn. It'll give you my background and some of the other inventions and things that I've done.
I love it. Thank you so much both for being on.
Well, thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.